Hello YouTube. Today we're going to talk about Virginia cycling laws. So to get started with this, the first thing that we're going to talk about, as soon as I can erase that, there we go, that's good enough, is that we are going to talk about, well, obviously Virginia cycling laws, but the first thing we're going to go over is that cyclists can ride on sidewalks, shade paths and crosswalks. That's actually surprising to me because I actually never knew that before this. I always thought that riding on sidewalks was illegal. But cyclists have all the rights and duties as pedestrian under the same circumstances. Cyclists and other users of shared paths crossing highways, which is essentially a road, for those of you who don't know. Well, it's essentially a road. They just like using highways. I don't know why. At clearly marked crosswalks must come to a complete stop at stop signs prior to entering such crosswalks. So let's just say my handy dandy ruler. So this is the road side that you're on. Let's just say this is like the stop sign area. Let's stop. I'll put annotations if you can't read it. And then like this is the sidewalk. Right over here. So, also over up here. There we go. So, if you're a cyclist, you're a rectangle. If you're trying to enter this area, you must come to a complete stop before you can go. So it's essentially just like you're at a normal stop sign. Except that you can go on crosswalks. I'm guessing, based on my interpretation of the law, you're also, if you want to do that, you're going to have to come to a complete stop at the stop sign. Now, moving on. You must obey all traffic signs, signals, lights, and markings. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. You have to follow stop signs, you have to follow stop lights. You have to follow yields. You have to follow, I don't know. So, moving on. Under certain circumstances, bicyclists, motorcycles, and mopeds may proceed through a solid red light at an intersection. A driver or rider may proceed through the intersection on a steady red light only if the driver or rider complies with the 5 provisions listed below. They first must come to a full and complete stop at the intersection for 2 complete cycles of the traffic. Now let's explain this one first. So, let's just say horribly written, I know, drawn. So, let's just say this is a 4-way stop. So, there's a stoplight over here. It would be on this side. So, if you're the cyclist to come here, stopped, and it's like a red light, we'll just say that that's a traffic sign. It's a red light. You must come to a stop for 2 cycles of the traffic light, so for 2 times for all the way to go around, 2 times, or for 2 minutes, whichever one is shorter. Second, you must provide exercises due care as provided by law. So, I have to redraw this, don't I? Alright, fine. So, if you're a cyclist, and it's been 2 cycles, or it's been 2 minutes, whichever one's shorter, and you try to cross, you're gonna have to look like you are in a car, like as if you're in a car, for any oncoming traffic from any direction, except for this one, unless if they're turning. But that's essentially it. So just look out, look left, right, left, to make sure there is no traffic coming at you. Third, Otherwise treats the traffic control device as a stop sign. So what that means is that you must treat a stoplight as a stop sign. Simple enough. Determines that it's safe to proceed. I just went over that. Making sure there is no traffic. And 5, yields the right of way to the driver of any vehicle approaching on such other highway from either direction. That was very complicated language, but essentially means what I just said before, was that you have to make sure if there's traffic coming from this way, well, let's just say that you're the cyclist. God, I have to draw this line. Anyway. Say that you are the cyclist. You have to make sure there's no traffic coming from this way or this way. This way or this way. Alright, next. Alright. Cyclists must ride with the flow of traffic on the right side of the highway. Highway just essentially means road here. So let's just say that this rectangle is a cyclist, and this bigger rectangle is a car. So cyclists must ride on the right side, that isn't bicycle lane, blah. Let's ride on the right side of the road. Let's just say that this is R, this is L, there we go. So you can't ride on the left side of the road because cars have to pass on the left. It's a simple safety procedure to make sure you don't get run over by a car. Next, block of text, but cyclists operating on a bicycle on a roadway less than the normal speed of traffic at the time, and place under conditions than existing shall ride as close as safe. Next bullet is just saying that you're going to have to ride as closely as possible to the right side of the road if you're traveling less than the recommended speed limit, or the speed limit. So the only exceptions to this, the exceptions to this are when cyclists are overtaking and passing another vehicle proceeding in the same direction, preparing for a left turn, avoiding unsafe conditions, avoiding riding in a lane that turns or diverges to the right, riding on a one-way street, and that's essentially it. Or riding when the lane width is too narrow to share with a motor car, or why I just say motor car, to share with the car. So essentially, the only exception to this one rule, hogging, well, all the exceptions, but the one different one, where you're not riding on the right side of the road, is if this is a one-way street, you cannot go this way. So you cyclists would have to ride on the left side, because that would mean that cars can use the whole entire right side and not have to drive around the cyclists. Alright. Cyclists must. You cannot. Next bullet essentially says that you cannot ride in between two traffic lanes. So you cannot ride. Let's just say it. This dotted line is the normal white dotted line. You can't ride up the middle. That would be entirely disastrous and stupid. Alright. Also, the next bullet says that, essentially says that you cannot ride more than 2 by 2. So you cannot have more people that you had. This is the maximum amount. So 2 people on a road, 2 cyclists on a road is the maximum amount. You can't have a third person over here. No, that's bad. Just it's unsafe because with two people, cars can still get around safely. They can still drive around you safely, which will enable them to not run one of you over. And then on a one lane, when you're riding two abreast, which is the term for it, you cannot impede the movement of traffic. So you cannot slow down all of the traffic because you're riding two, when you're riding abreast with one other person. And on a one-way road, you must ride single file. So cyclists are not allowed to ride on highways. That's pretty evident because you're riding with 75-mile-an-hour cars. It's not fun. It might be slightly fun in Arizona. Bikes. The next bullet point is that bikes may be ridden on sidewalks unless prohibited by local ordinance. So you can ride on sidewalks unless cyclists may ride on sidewalks unless you're told not to. And cyclists must also yield the right of way to pedestrians and give an audible signal when you're passing one. So let's just say this is the sidewalk. You are a bicyclist, and that is a person. You have to say passing on your left before you go around them, so that they know that they might want to step over a little bit. But also, if there's another person coming this way, you can't pass because you have to wait for the other person to go before you can pass. Alright, so the next bullet essentially says that when cyclists are pulling onto a sidewalk, so when cyclists are going onto a sidewalk or a highway from a driveway, highway being road, from a driveway, they must yield the right of way to pedestrians or vehicles that are already on said road or sidewalk. And then the last rule is that every bicycle ridden between sunset and sunrise must have at least one white headlamp, with the light being visible at least 500 feet to the front. The bicycle must have a red reflector on the rear, visible at least 600 feet to the rear. On roads posted with speed limits of 35 miles an hour or greater, bicyclists must additionally be equipped with at least one red taillight visible from 500 feet to the rear. Taillights may be steady or blinking, but are allowed under all conditions and may be attached to the cycle or rider. So that means that you must, if you want to ride at night, you must have lights on your bike. It's an absolute must. I would just get rid, my personal opinion is that when you buy a bike, go ahead and buy a pair of lights, unless you already have a pair of lights, because you're gonna end up riding home at night one time. Trust me, it will happen at least once. So I would just buy lights when you buy the bike, because it's a big safety improvement. You can have them on during the day to get people's attention as well, even if you're riding in the day. I mean, it helps a lot everywhere. So I also have to pose a question to you all after all of this. If I need you to comment whether or not I should do all 50 states. Yeah, 50 states. I know it'll be a daunting task, but I'm up to it if enough people are going to say yes. Let's say 100 people says yes. I'll do it. Alright, until next time, YouTube. I'll see you later.